We have been going through the book of Matthew, looking at Jesus and his interactions with his disciples. What lessons was he trying to teach to them? What correction was he bringing? What was the things that he was trying to instill in them? And then how do those lessons, corrections, and whatnot translate to us today as his modern day disciples? We find ourselves in chapter 24. Jesus has just finished bringing a rebuke to the Pharisees and the scribes in the temple. And he's leaving the temple here in chapter 24. I'm reading from the English Standard Version, picking up in verse 1. It reads, Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. But he answered them, "You see all these, do you not? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down." As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" And Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines and the earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because of lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And the gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. And so this is a very interesting piece of text, and we could spend a lot of time on it. But today, actually, we're not going to spend a ton of time on it because the purpose of this little video series is to focus on the lessons that he's giving to the disciples and whatnot. And so I don't want to spend too much time on the apocalyptic and the end time kind of points that this text is making. So let's start with the start. Jesus is leaving the temple. He will not return into the temple until, the end of time. And so he's leaving the temple here, and the disciples go to point out maybe the architecture of it or something about it. They point to the buildings of the temple, right? This grand temple, it's a beautiful spot. And Jesus has this kind of sharp response to them where he says, "Look at this temple, and truly I say to you," which is the phrase that he used to kind of build an emphasis of the point that he's making. Not one stone will remain here that will not be thrown down. He's talking about this total destruction of the temple. And later on, as we read in the account of the crucifixion, it's at that event actually that the first crack at that temple takes place. And then in 70 AD, the whole thing gets destroyed when the Roman army comes through. And so he says this remark to them and kind of just closes it off there and doesn't really expand on it. Then he's on this Mount of Olives, right? And he's having kind of this reflective moment, and the disciples in private, they come up to him and they ask two questions that they probably thought were one question. They ask, when will this take place? And when will your coming be, like the end of the age? And they're probably thinking that these are linked events, as many have, and some actually still do. But Jesus doesn't answer it as if they are. He gives this answer, and then he expands on it, right? He says, "See that no one leads you astray, for many will come in my name, saying that they are the Christ, and they will lead many astray. And you will see wars and hear of wars, and there will be natural disasters, and there will be famines." And he talks about this tragedy that takes place. There is going to take place. And we know later on, right, so we have this prophetic element that Jesus is speaking. And like I said, in 70 AD, the Roman army came through. They sacked Jerusalem, and they destroyed it, and they destroyed the temple. And some people take that to say that that's the fulfillment of even all the things of Revelations and this. And I'm not there with them. I don't see that. I don't agree with that interpretation of the text. But he makes this point of all of these things that are going to happen. And when you look at the list, it's brutal. It's horrible. All these things that are going to take place, right? And so we have people who are coming as false Christs. And we've seen that throughout history. We continue to see it today. We see people who misrepresent Christ. We see people who come in his name and teach false gospels and false theologies and lead people astray. We see people who leave the faith for their own passions and their own desires and for sinful lusts in their life. And then we see nation against nation and wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes taking place in places where they haven't taken place before, and magnitudes that just seem very grand and odd and whatnot. And he says to be aware that these are coming. Like understand that they're coming. They're undeniable that they're here and they're going to take place. But they are just the birth pains. The birth pains. A signal, once again, of something that is coming that is not yet there. So he says all this. And then he says, you are going to be hated. You're going to be hated. The people will put you up on trial. They'll put you to death. They will hate you. But endure. And that is the theme right there of this text, is endure. Some things aren't difficult to endure, right? It's a nice sunny day, it's warm, there's a nice little breeze coming in, you go to the beach, and maybe you take a picture and you send it to one of your friends, and you're like, oh man, the struggle's real, in kind of a sarcastic way, you're joking about it, right? In the great difficulty that it is, because it's not. It's an easy day. When life is good, endurance just comes naturally because there's really nothing to endure. There's no resistance. It's a little different when you find yourself, in the middle of winter, out shoveling in the driveway and in freezing cold, and you're feeling gross and your back's hurting, but you have to endure because, the driveway needs to get cleared. Or in this case, in a much more real case, when the people that you love, your brothers and sisters in Christ, abandon the faith for false gospels, for false teaching, or for their own desires. And then the world looks at you and looks at the values that you hold to because of your Christian faith, and they hate you because of it. Because of lawlessness, their hearts have grown cold, and what they see as right is actually truly wrong, and what they deem as wrong is actually righteous. And so they look at you and your values and your behavior, and they call you evil because of it. They call you evil for standing for the ways of God. And there's this call from Christ of saying, you're going to have to go through this. You are going to have to suffer. You are going to be hated. And some people don't get that. Some people, when they come to Christ, when they come to their Christian walk, it's been sugar-coated. It's been watered down. They've only been told the highlight reels of the greatness of it, and life is good. And there's even poor, just heretical teaching out there of come to Christ and you'll never be sick, you'll never be poor, you'll never go through suffering, everyone will love you, life will be great. That's not in the Bible. That's not right. You're going to suffer. You're going to have problems with people. People are going to hate you because of this. You'll be right before God. And so there's this call of endurance. Endure to the end, and you will be saved, right? And the gospel of the kingdom will be the whole world. We'll go through it to the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. but the one who endures to the end will be saved. And so we know that the end is coming, but they also knew that the end was coming 2,000 years ago. And we don't know when that's going to take place. And a lot of people have tried to figure out hidden clues in the text and do all these weird calculations. And they write books and they put billboards out there. The end is coming. The end is coming. And then the day comes that they announce that it was going to come. Like, oh, well, actually, I got this number wrong. Then they write a new book or they do something. And it's like the Bible is actually quite clear. No one knows the day or time except the Father. And so we don't know when that's taking place. We know it's going to, but we don't even know if we're going to see it in our life. And so endure anyways. Hold on anyways. Be on watch. Be aware. Be waiting. But endure. It's going to be difficult. If you truly stand for God, you will go through those things. And the world's going to get darker. Nation will rage against nation. Natural disasters will be on the rise. Brothers will hate brothers. But endure. It's not the most happy and fluffy teaching today, but it's one that is drastically important. Drastically important. I can remember me and Tori, my wife, when we were just dating, we went out to some beach here in Nova Scotia and we rented surfboards for the day. And we have no idea how to surf at all and had no idea what we were doing, but it was kind of fun. It was fun, but we got caught in this little riptide. And it, if you're not familiar with the ocean, a riptide, so you have the ocean, and there's like this section that's almost like a river in the ocean, and it just pulls you out. And we didn't really realize what was happening, and then all of a sudden we're quite far from the beach. Just so you know, what you need to do is you need to swim horizontally, like you need to swim out of the riptide and then swim to shore. And so we're there and we're paddling with our hands, and she's like, I'm tired. I'm like, it doesn't matter. You can't stop. We need to keep paddling. We need to keep swimming. We have to get there. Last summer, me and one of my friends here in the church, we decided to do a 100-kilometer bike ride. And by the end of the ride, we realized, well, actually, I probably realized later than he did, but it was a difficult ride. It was an exhausting ride. And there was the turnaround point, right? So we had biked 50 kilometers, and then we turned around. And I remember the guy that I was with saying, something along the lines of, I don't know if we're up to this. Like, I don't know if we can do it, kind of thing. And I responded with, it's already done. Like, we've already passed 50 kilometers. I said, it's just a matter of time. We have to get back to the car. There's no real other option here. We have to endure. And to you, my brother and sister in Christ, I'll say, stay with God. The end is coming. We don't really know when it's coming, but we know that it is. And we know that life is going to be hard. It is going to be challenging. It is going to have its difficulties. But endure. Because truly, if we are in Christ and if we have the understanding of who He is, then what other option is there? Like, when you have a true understanding of who God is, the greatness of God, the glory of God, there's nothing else would come close. And so the suffering that we go through in order to glorify Him and in order to present His gospel to others and in order to be His people is worth it. And to me, with my love for Christ, it's at the point of there's no other option here. I'm not going that way. I'm not turning around. I'm not calling it quits. I'm not going after something else. And so I will endure the suffering because I know it is worth it. And I know that there is a day that is coming, right, after the birth pains, when he does return, the end of the age, when God will wipe away every tear. And that suffering that I'm going through currently, the hatred of others that comes against me because of my Christianity, will be just this small moment in the grand scale of things, and it will hold no significance in my life. And the joy of Christ, the joy of being in Christ and knowing him far outweighs all of the opinions of man. And so it's a simple message. It's an important one. Stay faithful. Endure the suffering. Know that he is returning. And stay faithful to God. I hope that's an encouragement to you today, and I hope that you honor God in all that you do.